Are you stressed when it comes to your AP Psych exam? Not sure what the first step is to take when it comes to writing those AP FRQs? Well, in this video, we're going to go over a 5-step strategy to help you write an effective AP Psychology free response question. By the end of this video, you'll have this strategy along with 3 helpful resources that you can use with your AP Psych prep starting today. So stay tuned because we're about to go over a lot, and be sure to like and subscribe to this channel because this is just part 1 of 2 of our AP Psychology series. In our next video, we're also going to go over 20 AP Psychology FRQ tips for helping you tackle the concept application question, research question, as well as general test-taking strategies. One of the things to keep in mind when it comes to AP Psychology is that just because the free response section is only worth 33%, it still matters a lot for your overall exam score. Sometimes students underestimate the free response section of the AP Psych exam because it's not like some other classes where the FRQ section is worth as much as 50%. But remember, you still have to strategize and prepare for these free responses in order to do well on your overall AP Psychology exam. Let's go ahead and jump into step number 1 of our 5-step strategy. The first step when it comes to writing effective AP Psychology free response questions is to understand the difference between the concept application question and the research question. These are the 2 types of questions that the College Board will give you. And the intent of the concept application question is for you to demonstrate that you can take concepts that you learned in class and apply it to a new scenario. So the College Board will literally give you a scenario in which you will then be asked to draw in concepts that you learned in class to the specific scenario. This is a way for you to demonstrate that you understand and are able to define and explain different concepts, behaviors, theories, and perspectives. When it comes to the research question, this is where you're going to be assessed on 2 key skills. The first is data analysis, which is your ability to read and interpret data. And then the second one is scientific investigation, which is your ability to really challenge and understand the premise behind a psychological research study. A few years ago, it wasn't guaranteed that students would receive a research question in the FRQs. However, the College Board has changed their stance on this in recent years, in which students have seen at least 1 question be a research question every single year. So be sure that you prepare for this because it's really important for demonstrating those 2 skills of analyzing data and then also understanding and being able to demonstrate understanding of scientific investigation. So as you can see here on the screen, what we're showing are 2 concept application questions from the 2019 and 2018 FRQs. In these questions, it's very common for there to be a paragraph in which the scenario is explained, followed by the definitions or key concepts that are being asked of the student to demonstrate their understanding of. So in this first question, the 2019, we have to demonstrate that we know things like what altruism is, what Broca's areas does, self-efficacy, and so on. And then in the 2018 question, we're being asked to look into things such as context-dependent memory, as well as selective attention. And then when we shift gears into looking at the research question, we'll look at the 2019 and 2017 example. What you'll see is that in the 2019 example, there is a set of data that the student is asked to analyze and then interpret results from. And then also there is a section in which the student has to demonstrate understanding of operational definitions as well as different variables and key concepts when it comes to applying what they learned in class to psychological research studies. The same goes in 2017, in which in this year's exam, what was given was a table of data, and then the student had to interpret that as well as talk about some of the variables that were being assessed in the respective scenario presented. Something to notice when it comes to the research question is that one section is always dedicated to data analysis, whereas the other section is very similar to a concept application question. Just something to keep in mind as you start familiarizing yourself with research questions. Now that we've gone over step number 1, let's go into step 2 of writing effective AP Psychology free responses. Step number 2 when it comes to writing effective AP Psychology free responses is to learn from the mistakes of past students. The nice thing about the AP Psych exam is that it honestly hasn't changed that much in the last decade. So there's a lot you can learn by reviewing the chief reader reports as well as the scoring guidelines that the College Board shares with you. For example, when it comes to the concept application question, the College Board commonly shares 3 pieces of advice. The first one is to make sure that you are writing in complete sentences. Spelling and grammar don't necessarily matter, but it is a problem if you are responding to your concept application question in incomplete sentences or in bullet form. The second thing that they always remind you of is to make sure that your answer does not have parts that contradict one another. You won't lose points for getting something wrong unless it directly contradicts something that would have been part of the explanation in you getting it right. And the final thing is that just defining concepts is not enough to earn the point alone. Sometimes students know what the concept is that they're being tested on, but they're not able to apply it to that scenario. So that's really, really important. When it comes to the research question, students make a few common mistakes. The first one is having wishy-washy answers. So if you're being asked whether or not the data supports the hypothesis, you cannot just say something along the lines of, well, it depends. You have to say whether or not the data supports or does not support the hypothesis. Being very clear and explicit in your communication is really important when it comes to the research question. Another common mistake of students is answering the wrong question, not actually looking at the prompt, understanding what the prompt is asking them, and addressing the prompt directly. Another mistake students make is that they confuse correlation equaling causation, which is not true. The other thing that they do is they have a general sense of what a concept is, but again, they're not able to apply it to the specific research study being presented at them. The last mistake that students make is that they just understand the general methods of research, but they're not able to compare and contrast different methods or psychological concepts with one another. So the difference there is that one of them demonstrates that you can memorize something, whereas the other one demonstrates that you actually have mastered the content knowledge. Going through the last few years of free response questions is a great way for you to understand the commonly made mistakes of students. Now that we've gone over that, let's jump into step number 3. Before we head into step number 3, be sure to like and subscribe to this video because in our next video, we're going to go over 20 actionable AP Psychology FRQ test-taking strategies that you can start using as you prepare for your exam. The third step when it comes to AP Psychology FRQs is to underline or circle what each question part is asking you. Most of the time, you'll be asked to identify, explain, or describe something. If you're asked to identify something, this is where you're going to provide 1 to 2 sentences directly answering the question. Name the concept and then apply it back to the question prompt. If you're being asked to describe something, this is where you have to characterize something. So this will typically take anywhere from 2 to 3 sentences, since after you characterize it, you will have to again apply it back to the prompt. Similar directives to the directive of describing can be expressed as being asked to show something or illustrate something. When you're asked to explain something, this will typically require you to use at least 3 sentences. 1 sentence will be to directly respond to the question, followed by 2 to 3 supporting and specific facts that support your answer. You need to go in depth about how the particular concept or theory connects back to the prompt. Teachers often refer to this as showing the why, and similar directives to explaining something is if the question asks you to do something like discussing or relating something. Aside from these directives, you want to build the habit of circling or marking key vocabulary in the questions just to make sure that you answer these in your response so that you score full points. Now let's head into step number 4. The fourth step when it comes to writing effective AP Psychology free responses is to make sure that you plan out your response before you begin writing. Just taking a few minutes to plan out your response can add a greater probability that you will have a thorough and complete response. Consider, if you're going to bring in a case study that you learned in class, how that case study applies back to the prompt. Having these sorts of moments to think about what you've already learned in class can provide stronger examples than trying to use a personal example in explaining or defining a specific concept. Another thing to consider is to add a topic sentence in your response. This can buy you a little bit of time for you to translate the question prompt into your own words before you begin defining and applying different concepts. Remember, the College Board is using the free response section to assess you on your ability to apply concepts that you learned in class to higher order thinking. And so this means that you need to be able to apply concepts, read data, and analyze psychological studies. And in order to do so, this means that you can't just recall the definitions in order to score points. You have to be able to actually apply what you learned towards new scenarios that are described to you. The fifth and final step when it comes to writing effective AP Psychology FRQs is to practice, practice, and then practice some more. We highly recommend that you work your way through at least 3 past years of exams and to team up with a friend as a study buddy to grade each other's work. It can be super helpful to see how another student would have answered that same question as you, and for the both of you to work through the scoring guidelines to see specifically whether each other's responses would have scored full points. Understanding and mastering the rubric in the application of not only your own work but another person's work can help you solidify your understanding of what the AP graders are going to be looking for. It takes just a few days to get through these, but it's a really helpful way to make a big impact on your AP Psych prep. 3 additional resources when it comes to preparing for AP Psychology, as we promised at the beginning of this video. The first one is the College Board's AP Central. This is where you're going to find all the past released free response questions, as well as scoring guidelines, sample responses, and chief reader reports. The sample responses are really great because the College Board gives you a demonstration typically of an exceptional student, an okay student, and then a poor student response. So this will be a great way for you to really understand the concept of what it means to not only define a concept, but apply it to a scenario. The second resource is Albert's free AP Psychology Review Guide. You can find this on our blog, and it's a self-paced study guide that you can use with either Albert or any other review resource as you prepare for your exam. And the last resource is Albert's AP Psychology course, which provides hundreds of multiple choice questions that are standards aligned to the AP exam with detailed explanations, as well as original FRQs and full-length practice exams for you to simulate the real thing. So you can use that to supplement your AP Central prep efforts, as well as anything else that your teachers may give you. Now I want to hear from you. If you have any questions about AP Psychology, leave a comment below or tell me what was most helpful in this video. And be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, because in our next video, like I mentioned, we're going to go over those 20 FRQ tips for AP Psych to tackling that concept application question, as well as that research question to help you score a 4 or 5. That's it for this time though. I'll see you guys next time.